Welcome to Podcasting Sucks. I'm Jeff Townsend, longtime podcaster, never a great one. But luckily, I do have somebody that covers up my weaknesses with his strengths. It's my good friend, Fuzz to the Martin. How's it going,
What's
Fuzz?
up, dog? Good to see you.
Duh.
It's been a while. It's been a month since we've actually recorded an episode. We launched an episode later because we ended up, it was like around the holidays, and I was slammed with work, and you were slammed with your multiple works. And
I
so we recorded it.
I just butchered putting it up in time, didn't I?
Just like you missed it by like a few, like 6 hours. Had you gotten it 6 hours earlier, I probably could have gotten it up. But then we would have had a long pause between shows. And here we are right now. And this is fine. We're here together. We all have so much content. If you want to hear Jeff's voice, there are so many podcasts that you can hear Jeff Townsend's voice on. And same with me. But Jeff,
you want to hear my schedule right now, Fuzz?
Yes, I do.
This can relate to how podcasting sucks.
Okay.
So I work the day job, the business management, manufacturing. I work about 8 to 6, give or take, maybe a little bit later, maybe a little bit earlier, depending on the day. Then I have a few hours I spend with my kids, eat dinner. By 9 o'clock, I then start the Wish TV All Indiana Podcast Network director stuff.
Yep.
And I do that for a few hours. And then I start the podcast that I'm involved in. I got two professional wrestling two podcasts with former professional wrestlers and current one of them that I've kicking off. So I do that. So I get that in from about 11 or midnight to about 2 or 3. Then I get up at 6:30 in the morning and I do it all again. That's been my schedule.
It's going to run you ragged, man.
It is. So it's
But here's the thing. Are you enjoying it?
Some parts of it, yeah. But to say that I'm not just like tired would be a lie, right? Like very tired.
So from
I'm
my
old,
world,
I'm angry, I'm pissed off, all that stuff.
Yeah, but we don't need that, because we
No.
need you to stay around and healthy and be podcasting into your, late 90s. So
Yep. 35 more years than I can retire. That's what I keep telling myself.
This isn't a government job though, so you're going to have to keep grinding. Are there any that you're currently making enough money off of that you're like, all right, I need to keep that one going because it's feeding the kids?
Well, the podcast network obviously is gonna put the kids in college, right? So let's be honest.
Right, exactly.
But the other ones, Indiana Stories, indie podcaster was making money, but of course, as you know, it's just basically promoting episodes of what we're doing and what you're doing.
Yeah.
But Indiana Stories, I actually have not put an episode out in 3 weeks. I took the holiday time off, so I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with that. And I'm very confident the two with the professional wrestlers, Austin Aries, Bill DeMont, and I'm talking to a few more actually. They will make money instantly just off a dynamic ad insertion volume, then go from there. Answer your question, yeah, but I think in the next couple of months things will really be a completely different picture for me. I'm going to stuff my schedule up, but
I have a question for you on the dynamic ad insertion. So you were using Captivate. Have you moved to Spreaker?
I have not moved Indie Podcaster or anything else that I'm doing. Yep. I actually instantly was approved. I met with Spreaker, and I got accepted into the Prime program once they heard who I was going to be working with. And so that's free. So that's how that comes into play with the dynamic ad insertion right off the bat. Because unfortunately, Captivate doesn't have that. That'd be incredible.
So,
but yeah, Spreaker got me in their Prime program.
Captivate and Danny, if you're listening, and I know Danny's listening, they were supposed to launch that in Q1 of 2022. They had that on their list. So when they got bought out by Global has a section. They have an ad platform, a programmatic ad platform, and they were supposed to insert that. And then it got bumped to Q2, and then now I don't know where that's at. So now I don't know.
Obviously, I would use it, Fuzz, if I could, right? But when you're working with these particular people, that's got to be a thing right off the bat.
I totally. So when so my wife's podcast, we used to be on Spreaker, and we were making like enough to cover the hosting every month. So
Right.
it wasn't crazy, but and she makes her money on her podcast off of speaking engagements. So every summer she'll get speaking engagements. She'll make a few $1,000 off of doing that stuff, and that's kind of where that comes in. And it's a service to people. And we're talking about free tech tools for teachers. But when we switched to Captivate, she's like, "Hey, I'm not making any money anymore, and it costs more money. So we're actually like, down a few bucks a month compared." And it doesn't matter that much because Captivate, in my opinion, is a much better platform for hosting. But the the so what I did for that is I installed AdSense ads on her website, and now we're making not quite there yet, but we're pretty close each month. We're making about enough to cover the hosting for Captivate each month on the volume of search traffic that we get and clicks on her ads and things like that. So, but if Captivate would, because I don't want to leave Captivate, but if they would finally launch their programmatic ad platform, her show would be covered. I probably wouldn't do that with Good Morning Podcasters because I don't think it's the audience for that. But like my local podcast, people would be cool with me running, because when I was on Spreaker, I was on Spreaker prior to this. When I was on Spreaker, we get ads for the local car dealership and things like that. And it sounded like it fit. So
Yeah.
it sounded like a local radio station. It sounded like Wish TV. Maybe. So
Maybe.
I just want you to not burn yourself out. I know you're already burnt out, but I want you to not burn yourself out too much more.
I think the good thing is I've been doing this for quite a while, but and I've always wanted to talk about, as you know, I love professional wrestling. So to me, it's also, if I can get a good, and it's all scheduled out this day, that day, that day. If I get a good workflow going and a good system, I'm pretty confident going to keep the YouTube videos to a minimum. It's not going to be some crazy transitions, going to be a title, then the video, and then that, whatever. I'm going to keep things simple. I'm going to keep the editing, the audio portion simple if I'm going to be doing that. And then for the time being, I'm probably not going to be cutting out every put it that way. Yeah. It's a different audience. It's funny because, and I guess this is kind of on the topic. When I listen to a lot of these podcasts about professional wrestling, nostalgia, current product, whatever, they're not the best audio quality by any means, Fuzz, at all.
Right.
And obviously they're massively, massively popular, but it's kind of like a different thing. It doesn't even bother me when I listen to them. And I obviously know what good or bad audio is. I'm not like an audio engineer, but it's almost like it doesn't even matter, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's just the stories and the people, the personalities. They're not awful though. They've come a long way, but some of them, they used to actually be really bad, but it's still though, you just get used to it and you like it because the topic at hand. And so I'm going to try not to overthink the editing like I would with everything else that I've done, just because obviously the more you do the podcasting, the more you talk about podcasting, then you tinker with things a lot more.
Totally. I'm 100% with you on that. And I think there are definitely things that you can tighten up with your workflow to cut a few, moments off. There's one thing, my Friday episode of Good Morning Podcasters is about why I switched my podcast my website from Squarespace over to podcastpage.io, because I wanted to cut out that time it took for me to spin up a web page each episode. And now it's like done. It's automatic. So anywhere that you can cut out some of that time is great. And to be honest, like I have an employee. His name's Steve. He's fantastic. He's an awesome, like one of the best designers anybody would ever meet. He's fantastic.
Steve. I don't know if you listen, but hey, Steve.
He, whenever he's in the office, and we're hybrid, so he's in, probably 3 days a week. He is always listening to, but watching YouTube versions of a wrestling podcast. So and I've heard them, and they're not, to your point, they're not like the highest quality audio.
Nope.
They don't have to be.
Nope.
They're talking about the subject matter is what matters. If you have the subject matter, if you have the people, like the celebrity, the guest, like that thing that people want, they'll get over small audio problems. Now, I will tell you this: there is a podcast that I listen to. There's two. So I listen to a podcast called Putting on Airs, which is with a comedian named Trey Crowder and a comedian named Corey Ryan Forrester. That podcast, Putting on Airs, sounds fantastic. They have another podcast that's produced by a different person. It's called the Well Read Podcast. And every episode, one person is barely audible, and the others sound okay. And that one, I just stopped listening because it's hard to listen to that. So it has to be like audible. It can't be, it doesn't have to be perfect. I guess that's what I'm getting to. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be listenable.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yep. Exactly right.
But I think that you are sitting on the edge of something great with the wrestling podcast and the people that you're connecting with. I think that's awesome. And to me, in my honest opinion, giving you, like, if I'm playing program director for the Jeff Townsend show, I'd say skip this show that we're doing, skip the Indiana Stories, skip indie podcasters, do the Tanner Campbell thing, and go all in with the niche that you're going to. People who know you and love you are going to still follow that, but just be the wrestling guy and see where that takes you.
Really, it's going to be fun, but also I'm going to keep involved with this community as well. I'll do things like this every week. Might be hard, but still bought in partially to Good Morning Podcasters, even though I have no credits in it because Fuzz won't give me any. I still owe him more money, I think, but no, I'm just kidding. But I'm seriously,
you got credits in this, bud.
But I like being a part of things too and collaborate. I mean, like, because I'm going to be handling the ball a lot on those. So sure. I'm more than welcome. Like Indiana Stories, I'd like to find somebody to work with on that.
Yeah.
Because it's performed very damn well. And I don't think it's something that should just get ditched completely. So I'd love to figure out somebody that could kind of pick up the ball and run with it, and I'll support them.
Is there a personality at in the station group that you work with that maybe you're tight with, that maybe you can make that happen?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because today I actually thought of an idea with somebody and I ran it by him. Whether that'll go or not, I don't know, but or I'm going to run it by him. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but I think it's definitely worth keeping though. It's done really well. People seem to really like it, and there seems to be a niche for it. But yeah, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. Hopefully, I don't know if I'm on the edge of something big, but I'm definitely doing things that I've always wanted to do, and I'm excited about it because it is a grind. These things don't happen overnight. You have to build a little bit of trust with people. You have to have people to put in a good word for you. Agreed. And you just hope the hard work pays off when you're doing it. That's why it's important to stick with it though, even though podcasting does suck, but you got to stick with it.
It does. I guess to my point, and I hate always bringing up Tanner's name, but the fact of the matter is that Podcasting Sucks was Tanner's baby, and Good Morning Podcasters was. The reason that we're doing this here right now on this channel is because he walked away from this to go do the thing that he saw his opportunity in. And I see that opportunity for you I see a similar direction for you, but you have to be willing to give up all of the ancillary stuff that you're used to in the inertia to say, okay, I'm going to make a drastic change. And now, like, Tanner's really good at making okay, I'm going to delete this website in every single freaking episode. Yes, exactly.
I don't know if it's a good thing, but nevertheless,
I don't know if that's a good thing either, but for him, it worked, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he went all in, and I respect the hell out of that.
Well, it didn't work every time, right? It's the hard work and the repetition that till he found something that really took off. He's done well, but to this point, no. It's that repetition It's that hard work and his willingness to make sacrifices and take big risk. So, I mean,
That's
you're
that's
right.
absolutely right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So I have a goal now. I'm going to try and shoot for. So we took over the Good Morning Podcasters and Podcasting Sucks piece on. It was on Halloween. First episode of Good Morning Podcasters was on of the new version was on November 1st, 2022. I want to try to hit my big goal is 20,000 listens by October 31st this year, which I will throw money behind and I will do some of that stuff. So I'm at almost 2,000 now after not even 90 days yet. So starting to amp up. Things are starting to go. I spent some money on Reddit ads and those seem to work okay. But I need to get to about 120-ish average listens, which means that toward the end of the year, you're going to have to be closer to 200 listeners per episode, or like 165 or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, obviously, Indie Podcaster did really well, but for me, I don't know if I have any plans of making any more episodes for that. Any content I create similar to that will probably funnel through some of the stuff we're doing here.
Yeah.
I know that I've sent you some emails about some people that could, and like your improv thing was great. When I think of improv, I think of me going out and just shouting swear words in the street randomly. But you turn something like that, which makes total sense, into where it relates to podcasting. And I like to do that on Indie Podcaster too. Sometimes I'd bring in these people that were maybe artists or were various different things, right? And it tied in. So I think that will funnel through the stuff that we're doing here, because again, that's a hell of a lot easier than just doing everything by yourself single-handedly with a podcast. So supporting you with some content, etc., will, or we double team it, we can tackle it. But yeah, I think for me, it's funneling through what we've created here a little bit. As far as my podcast about podcasting work, we'll be involved with you. So, and whatever Greg would need, of course, from Indie Drop In. But yeah,
we haven't had Greg on any of these. We haven't had Greg on anything yet. We need to get him more involved, I think, with this. So, Greg from Indie Drop In. I know he's got a lot of stuff going on as well, but it'd be fun to have him on, at least maybe for an episode of Podcasting Sucks, or get him on some Good Morning Podcasters stuff. Now that I'm accepting interviews on the show.
I mean, now accepting interviews. So I think, Fuzz, we can almost get 2 episodes out of this one. This is kind of like an update. We're at 20 minutes already, but we have been off for a little while. I've got a million different things I'm working on. You're working on a bunch of different things, but I will say that I've heard nothing but positive feedback about the way you're conducting and doing Good Morning Podcasters. I think it's like, because Tanner was Podcasting Sucks, right? Kind of has like my sense of humor on it, my take on it. That was like his thing. So Good Morning Podcasters almost felt like it wasn't natural for him.
Yeah.
Like he almost had to act a little bit more lace tight than he is. But I think that's actually, it fits with you perfectly. And people seem to be enjoying it. And like I said, you bring so many different dynamics to that program that's just not, let's talk about monetizing my podcast. Let's talk about advertising. So to me, I always like out of the box thinking, and I think you're doing a great job with that.
Well, I really appreciate that. And it's been fun. There's been some things where I'm like, oh, I like do this every single day in like real world work. How can we bring this thing that we're talking about?
Because that's the stuff you know about. That's the stuff that you've done for decades. You got to take your strengths and you got to be able to use them. And you can do so many different things with podcasting. So many different things apply to it, and you have a lot of that knowledge.
Well, I appreciate that. And thanks to those who have, there have been people who have left great comments and people have given me, feedback on social media and such. And, I feel like I'm starting to find the groove. When you start something and at first you're like, am I doing this right? Is this worth it?
Yeah.
And back to the point about the website, like I was like, I am dying putting all of this together every single episode. And I know like you, thankfully, Jeff, you and and Greg have both like chimed in and said, "Hey, if you need content, like let me know. I will
Yep.
help you." And I appreciate that. And I think that will be important coming up and getting to that number of streams goal that I have is going to have to
Yeah.
include some of that coming up. But it's starting to feel right and good. Um, and you know, that niche of, you know, I don't never want to be a guru, and I don't want to
Yep.
pump people up. You know, there's plenty of people that can pump you up. So, I just want people to know some of the stuff that I know so they can do better at what
Yep.
they're doing. Cause there's a lot of stuff that's super easy, but people just don't know about it unless they do that for a living. So, but anyway, I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Well, you also help out because, like I said, we're just recapping here in this first one, I guess.
Yeah.
You also help out because with a lot of people that we work with, I'm not going to say I brought you in the community, but certainly was like, hey, this guy knows his stuff. He has a different approach to it, and I'm unorthodox myself. But you really appeal to the people that aren't going to spend a hell of a lot of money,
Mhm.
and you kind of like base your episodes off of that. Hey, if you want to spend money, this is what you should do. But these are things you really require no money, just effort and maybe some strategic planning.
I could go. So, I mean, our clients that I work with, you know, like I run a $15 million a year company. We have clients that spend a whole lot of money to do some things, but I also know that most people who are the people that I think that I'm talking to, if I look at the audience, at least on Twitter and who I think I know is listening, aren't the ones that have $1,000 a month or something, you know, like more than that to spend on advertising and marketing. If we wanted to get into that, I could certainly get into that. We could go deep in. I got things, but I want to make it accessible to people, and and I think that most of the people who are listening to the show are the ones who like you can make some big steps with some simple moves if you're just consistent and put in like focused work. You don't have to go and do every single thing, but if you focus on something, if you have, you know, if you have like a couple $100 a month is a lot of money to some people. But there are some things that you can do that can get listeners to your show. If you have $0, there are still some things that if you put in the time cost of doing that, that you can get people to listen and hopefully start to generate enough revenue that you can start to spend more money and hopefully, you know, balloon out into somebody who, you know, is either picked up by a network or starting your own. So,
Yeah. And I think that and we really connect with a lot of these people on podcasting power hour, especially.
mhm.
I don't, it's until you're doing it, it's kind of hard to like fully grasp how much time it takes because there's so much time that we're putting into these podcasting about podcasting stuff that is not going to be like recognized.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. For me, it's Twitter DMs.
Mhm.
It's a lot of stuff like that. It's a lot of networking. Check this person out. Like they're an expert at it, and stuff like that. As you've been getting into as well, that's the kind of stuff that we don't talk about on our shows. That takes up quite a bit of time and effort, but that's some of the work that you have to put in to lay that foundation for these content creators.
Yeah, you know, one thing I miss about doing that when there was the Good Morning Podcasters Discord,
Mhm.
like that, there was a lot of interaction on that of like how to help, and I want to help. I guess that's why I'm doing that. I'm not,
Yeah.
you know, I yes, I want to make some money doing what I'm doing here on this, but I've got a job that pays really well. I've got a business.
Yeah,
Things are going really,
we have good jobs. We're
yeah.
fortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, so I like, and I don't, and I'm that's not me bragging. That's me saying I want to do this and share this. I don't want to do this because I I need to do this to keep the lights on. Um, I understand that people who are listening may want to do that, and I'm going to
Mhm.
help give them some ways that they can get there. But that's My goal is really to educate. That's it. So
my big thing's always been, don't go running before you know how to walk.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's as simple as that with a lot of the people that we interact with. You'd be surprised when you hear that, but yeah, it's just the fundamentals, kids, the fundamentals, brother.
Yeah. There was a person who joined us for a podcast in Power Hour, Stephanie, and I forget her last name at the moment. And she was asking us what she needs to podcast, and then we found out that she has like a great microphone and a roadcaster and all this stuff. We're like, okay, you're like,
story is she's done a lot of stuff on news outlets, politically speaking. So
okay,
the CNNs, the Fox News, MSNBCs. She has some credentials to go behind that. But to your point, as you're about to get into, that doesn't mean that she is ready to so-called run when it comes to podcasting.
Correct. Yeah. So she has all the gear. She has all the stuff. It was like really just like putting it together. Like, how do I make, kind of the things that we talk about on Good Morning Podcasters, like those, how do we make those things work in order to lift this up and get this going? And that's, I just want to support that. But again, I appreciate all of your support and your, I said something about, I'm not sure if you brought me into this community or not, but you certainly did welcome me into this and say, hey, do you want to be a co-host on Podcasting Power Hour? And that's kind of how this relationship with you and Greg kind of bloomed. And I appreciate that. And it's fun. I enjoy it. And I'm having a good time. And I feel like I've got a little space that I am having fun creating. And I appreciate everybody's listening. So
we're wrapping this episode up, but you are getting a workflow, and we've talked about that in previous episodes. That's been critical. You have consistency in regards to Good Morning Podcasters, even though I mess this up all the time. Podcast sucks, but you have a system going there, and it's working for you, and it's starting to pay off. Obviously, I get to see the downloads as well. I have access to that, and you can see the steady climb. This is when consistency's paying off. So yeah, well done.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And, sometimes podcasting sucks, but the goal of both Good Morning Podcasters and Podcasting Sucks is to make it suck less. And we appreciate you listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's the recap. Podcasting Sucks will go on as available. Maybe it's not just going to be us. Maybe other people will be into it. Maybe we'll be able to turn some dynamics around on this. And I think it's endless possibilities. This is just an extra component. And it's always fun to podcast with other people, not just yourself. So I'm sure that's part of it for you as well. Good recap there?
Yeah, great recap. And thanks again for listening to Podcasting Sucks, available on the Good Morning Podcasters feed. And Jeff, we will talk to you next time. These episodes for Podcasting Sucks, when they come out on Saturday mornings. And thank you for listening.